And here we go again. Ceterum, but ut ad ordinem, probably say that to the order, this would be in time, the order of things told. Aequo me, by which me, contemplatio, contemplation, publicae felicitatis, the contemplation of public felicity or good luck, averterat, which was turned, rediem. So this here is a clause. If you take that out, you have, but so that I shall return to the order of events from which I have turned this contemplation of public felicitas, perdica. It's the guy, nominative, is unicem spem salutis sua, is one hope of his own safety. In maligri morte, we have in morte, in with the ablative, which he was placing in the death, and the in section has been split with the genitive. So Perdica was placing his one hope of safety in the death of Maliga, and this was returning to the role of events. Vanum, which can mean empty, vain, boastful. Iundem, so the same guy, we'll say he's vain, and infidum, untrustworthy. And here's the enclitic and quickly res novatorum. You see this for revolutions, literally means new things, and quick towards new things. That's a future. Quick towards a revolution. And sibi, and to himself, infestum maxime. He was greatly, extremely infestum, hostile to him. Occupandum esse. So this Iundum, the same guy, this is the periphrastic must be done. He must be occupandum. He must be attacked. Said altar, but high or deep, dissimulation, concilium premvit. So he was brushing down or holding down his concilium, his plan, in, I'd say that would be deep dissimulation and with deep pretenses, so that he could opprime it, so that he could crush him in courtum, unawares, or when he's not being cautious. Ergo, therefore, clam, adverb, secretly, quosdam, certain people, excopius, from the forces, these would be quibus prit, with which he was in charge, from the forces in which he was in charge, he suborned them and put them under him, so that it was quasi as if ignorant ipsi. Quosdam's a plural, but so this here is a singular, so it was as if he himself was ignorant, he didn't know about it. And here's the plural with these quosdam people. These certain people would conqueror, they would complain, parlam, openly. So we have clam, secretly, parlam, openly. That maligrum was equal to dative perdica. Quorum, of which, sermon, ablative, maliga, ad se to himself. So we have a sermon relato. That's the ablative absolute. So when this conversation had been related, ad se to himself, and then we have maliga, he was furians, he was angry, ira with anger, or irate, he was furious with anger, perdica, perdicus, okay, quae comparis exponent. So he exposed this, or placed there, unrolled this this plot to dative perdicus, this little clauses, the things which he had comparated, which he had discovered in this sermon relatio. Illi, so he, velut, just as if, nova rex terratus, terratus goes with the illi, he acted as if he was terrified by this nova ray, by this new matter. As we saw, nova ray can mean revolutions, it's just a new thing. So he was admirare, he was terrified, he acted wondrous, basically. Query dolentus qui, so query and dolentus, speciem, the appearance, ostentare, eo. So he began to ostentare, to make a display of or show ei to him, the speciem, the appearance of complaining and grieving. Ad ultimum, to the end, convenit, it was agreed, ut that, comprehenderentor tam sedotia vocus auctores. So that these authors, auctors, would be comprehended, apprehended, of so seditious voices. So the authors of such seditious voices would be grabbed hold of. And this was the ultimate final thing. Adjit milanga gratius. If you adjit gratius, you're giving thanks. So maliga here, agatides gratius, he gave thanks. And emplexus basically means hugged or embraced the fidem eos towards himself. So Maliga gave thanks and embraced the good loyalty of trustworthiness of Perdiccas towards himself, and he conlaudated benevoli volentem. So conlaudat means he praised him, bene means good, volentem is will, so it was the good will which was praised. Tum, then, communi concilio, in a communal plan, council, there was a ration, a rationale, or a reasoning. Of primendi, the noxai eunt. They entered into this communal plan, whether they had reasoning of crushing the guilty party. Noxious, we get noxious in English, but it also means guilty. Of is a gerund in the genitive. Okay, we'll have a daily dictionary from the adjectives. They go first and second declension. Guilty or criminal, harmful, noxious. Top 2,000 words. Don't know how accurate that is. Sometimes they seem to be far out. Okay, placet. It was pleasing. It was decided. Exercitum, the army. Patria mora, in the customary ways of the homeland or the fatherland. To lustrari. This isn't to go to a brothel. It means to purify. So it was decided to purify the army et probabilis causa, and there was probable cause, videbato, it seemed, by the praeterito. It's something that means it's passed by or gone by. Here it would be time has gone by, the discordia of time gone by, or the former discord, seemed probable cause for this purification of the army. Okay, Macedonum regs, the kings of the Macedonians, ita, probably got an ut, the correlatives. So the regs were solitae erant. The kings were accustomed, of the Macedonians, thus ita, to lustrae, to purify their milites, their soldiers, and here's the ut, so that this schizae, if you know what scissors are, they're used for cutting up things. So carnis viscera, so the cut up viscera, which is like guts and things, the carnis of a dog, singular, ultimo in campo, to a furthest place in the plain, in quem deducuritor, the exorcist, in which they would, the army would be led to, and ab utriqui abici parte, and from each part, each sides, they would abicerent, they would cast these dissected viscera, and intra id spatium, which is neuter, inside this space, plural, amate omnes, all the armed men would starent, they would stand, it's plural. Hic and illic, here would be equites, the cavalry, and there would be the phalanx, illinc, adverbs. Itiqui, and so, eo die, in that day, on that day, quem huic sacro destinum variant, which had been destined or decided, dative to this sacro, this sacred rite. The rex, this is a king, cum his equitibus elephantis qui, with his cavalry and his elephants, they considerated, the king considerated. So the king stood with his elephants and knights against the pedites, the footmen, quiz, which Maliga was pre-ranting. He was in charge of them. So Yam now, equestre agmen, the column knights, was being moved, movabator, and the pedites, the footmen, subita formidian, with a sudden dread because of the recent discord. Horde sane, not clearly and not surely, pacadi, that's plural, they were not clearly pacified or calm. Quicquam expectans, so expectans is present participle, they were expecting, they were waiting, and they were clearly not calmed down, waiting anything, quicquam, parumpa. For a little while they were dubiveronting. This is the shortened version where they don't put the NT on end. So they were doubting and whether in urbam subducurant copias, of whether they should subducurant, so they should lead off their copias, their forces, into the city. Quippy, sense pro equitibus planates erat. Planates are fifth declension, I think. Since the plains were pro equitibus, favourable to the horsemen. Ceterum, but veretae, nay, verta fearing, it's inverted, so plural, they were fearing that temere rashly commilitum, their fellow soldiers, so fearing that they would damnorant, they could condemn or damn the fide, the trust or loyalty of their fellow soldiers rashly, they were substituting, they were halted. Preparatus ad dicamandum animus, so that's ablative and this is ablative. So with prepared minds to dimicandum, which is fighting, it's the gerund form of it, taking the ad. If quiz, if anyone would bring in vim, force. Yam ag minor, so now the ag minor, the columns, koi bant. This is an imperfect, so it's in the past. Yam in the past means already. So already the columns were coming together. Parvum qui intervalum erat, and erat, there was a small interval. Quad, which is the relative of a neuter, which dividerated, which divided, that's the subjunctive imperfect, it just adds a T on the end there. Utrumque, divided each of the aciam, each of the battle lines. Itaque, and so Rex, the king, cum una ala, with one wing, ob equitare, this means riding your horse, and equita horse, he coped, he began, taking the infinitive, to ride his horses, petitibus. This wouldn't be from, which would be an ablative, so it must be to, which would be a dative. So it's not an ablative, it have to be a dative. So one wing he began to ride towards the foot soldiermen. The Discordia auctors, the authors of the Discord, quos turi ipsi debit, which he himself ought to be touring, this is a deponent, which he himself should be safeguarding. Instinctu perdica, by the instinctu or the goading of Perdiccas, deposcens, they're demanding some supplica, which is like a punishment, minitabaturque, and threatening omnis termas cum elephantus inductorum se in recusantes, which is present participle. So he was threatening that all his termas, his squadrons, cum elephantes, with the elephants, he would inductorum, he would lead them forwards, and to anyone who would refuse. So they got their orders, which is a bit confusing. Stupebant improviso malo pedit. So the pedites, the foot soldiers, were stupefied by this ablative, by the unforeseen malo, which is trouble or danger. Nec plus in ipso maliga erat, nor was there more in Maliga himself, aught either concilia, a plan, or enemi, which is courage or spirit. Tutissimum, superlative, the most safest, ex praesentibus, from the present circumstances, videbator, seemed to be to expectare, to wait, potius quam, rather than movere fortunum. So it's most safest, it seemed, to wait for their fate, their fortune, than to movere, than to move. Tum perdica, then Perdiccas, ut as torpentes et obnoxious videt, as he saw the participle as torpentin, those are the stupefied, stunned people, and obnoxious. Noxious was our daily dictionary word. Obnoxious can also mean guilty or under his power. As he saw them, they were stunned and under his power, you might want to say. CCC ferre, remember this is firme without the M. So 300, is that correct? I think the script is different. We have 3 X's in the lobe. Might as well go with the lobe. I usually trust them. Gungadin. Seems like a good fellow. Okay, so he saw them, and almost 30, who maligram irumpentem, present participle, as Maliga was bursting out from Contianum, from the assembly, quae prima, which first habita est, this assembly which he had first had, about 30 people he'd saw, and post-mortem Alexandri, post-mortem means after the death of Alexander, Shakute, right, these 30 would have been following Maliga, who had bursting out, in a cateris. From the rest, discretos. So we see them, they're plural, and here they're plural, and now they are discretos, they're separated. And Elephantus in conspectu totius army, and in the sight of the whole army, he obicated to the elephants. He cast them into the elephants. Omnis qui bellarum, and all of these obtritai sunt were trampled down by the pedibus bellarum, by the feet of the beasts. Nec prohibanti Philippo, neither is the ablative, neither was Philippus prohibiting, but nor was he the author, nor was he behind it. Ad parabatqui, and it was apparent, you could make that double P if you want. Id modo, in this just now, or whatever, or is this merely for himself, pro suo, vindicaturum, which is the future. So it was open and apparent that this would vindicate his own suo, his own motives, quod ad probeset the eventus, what the turnout or the event itself would approve of. So everything was open, that he allowed it to go on. The end.